right. Welcome back to the PCC Podcast. And today, in this episode, I have a very special guest who is our coach, Julia, here at PCC, who probably in the future won't be as much of a guest as more of like just a regular appearance or regular familiar face on the podcast. But I'm so excited to have this first episode with you to honestly, like for myself, selfishly get to know you better, but also for our clients, just your background a lot more beyond what we can see on Instagram. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Sweet. All right. So let's start with this. I want to know, like, bring me all the way back to like what was inception point of fitness journey for Julia?
Yeah, so honestly, I was never super fit or super athletic growing up. I dabbled in soccer. My sisters were all American soccer players, and I was just kind of
Wow.
their biggest cheerleader, but never actually really fit or really athletic. I was actually pretty overweight, all throughout childhood and preteen years, going into my teenage years. And with that, I had a ton of health conditions that I was just born with that I slowly started to learn about. So, I found out I had one kidney. I found out I had hearing loss. I had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high triglycerides. And my doctor pretty much said, like, 13-year-old Julia, you have one kidney, you have these comorbidities, your family history is pretty strong in the fact that this is what is going to happen in your life, and here's some medication to cover that up. And so
Oh.
being a 13, 14, 15-year-old hearing this, I was on a mega dose of, omega-3 fish oils. I was, given all these medications and just told, you know, go to a nutritionist. And being at the time a vegetarian, I was really primarily just eating a lot of unhealthy foods, not very many nutrients, not so much protein, and I was not active, like I said. So reeling it back a little bit, I had a little wake up call, going into, I guess, sophomore or junior year of high school. Like, this is not going to be your life. You may have these genetic dispositions to have these, but doesn't mean that you need to allow that to keep going. So then I started going to CrossFit before school.
Oh.
I was 16, just turning 17 when I got my license. I was going to 5 a.m. CrossFit. Literally knew nothing about weightlifting, but I was like, I'm just going to start. And so I would be drinking my protein shake on the way, eating my post workout meal on the way to school, going into high school, and just really dove into, how can I improve my health without having to take all these medications. And so really dove into nutrition, really dove into fitness, jumped into a couple of challenges myself. And then I really just found my love for feeling good, yes, the physical came with it, right? Physical changes, but it was really about my internal health. And so I brought my triglycerides, my cholesterol, my blood pressure down naturally the next 2 years. Going into college, I had perfect health. My lab work was beautiful and just really feeling and looking my best that I had. So that's kind of where it all started.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. We said, I'm going to learn more about you. We really kicked it off with like, I did not know it started there or that you
Mm-hmm.
like were overweight as a younger kid. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like, I think a lot of people would probably relate in saying, looking at you now, meeting you now, that's just not like the history we would have pinned on you. Right.
Mm-hmm. For
Yeah.
sure.
Cool. Well, all right. So then that was a high school into college. And
Mm-hmm.
then what was the journey like that brought you to actually becoming a coach yourself? I'm sure I could make assumptions, but I want to hear from you.
Yeah, so my freshman year, I started at the university as looking into getting into healthcare in some way. So I looked into becoming a physician's assistant. I had applied into the nursing program at my school, but I actually started working with the strength and conditioning coach at my college. And then I worked with the athletic training as a student athletic trainer for the university with the athletes there. So just really, once again, like seeing how nutrition was impacting these athletes. And then also diving right next to the strength and conditioning coach working at the gym and seeing how it impacted their training sessions on the field, off the field, and just really seeing how the human body was working, right? So all the anatomy classes, physiology classes, all of that taught me a ton. And then just taking nutrition classes along with that, I just majored in health science. So that became my major, and I had a minor in holistic health. So just really getting into, I took meditation and yoga and just seeing the mental side of it too. To really see like the physical and the gym and also the mental and then the nutrition, just kind of grouping it all in. So overall, I actually met my now hubby, who is a registered dietitian, about a week into my freshman year of college.
Oh,
And at the
wow.
time, he was captain of the college lacrosse team. And I was working as a student athletic trainer. And he had an injury and needed an ice pack. And, you know, that's how we met. But that's how I really got into finding a career out of it and just making my like personal story into something that I could help others with. So he and I kind of joined together and started coaching, you know, him being the nutrition major, going to become a registered dietitian, and also as a college athlete, and then me with my background of just CrossFit, working with strength and conditioning team, working with the athletic trainer. And I kind of took over the social media side of things, and he was more so the coach at the time. So I really learned a lot through his schooling, through my schooling, and we worked together, you know, all throughout undergrad and grad school, being long distance for 3 years too, just kind of making a coaching career to help not only women, but also men at the time, and dabbled in bodybuilding for both of us. And that's kind of how we became coaches.
Yeah. No, that's really funny. I didn't know it was like meeting because of the athletic training thing and he
Mm-hmm.
needed an ice pack. That's funny. Um, okay, so yeah, I mean, it really kind of just naturally flowed from there, and really just stemming from like you taking control of your health at such a young age that like we
Mm-hmm.
really don't hear about nowadays stories like that. So that's really, really cool. And how it was always really internal health focused for you
Mm-hmm.
of your blood work and really making sure that your health is optimized as a whole. So no, that's really inspiring. So when it comes to your like bringing it back to your passion around
Mm-hmm.
holistic health, this is something that has just been such a big value add for us at PCC and for your clients. So like where did you go to learn all these things about, because like I'm asking you questions left and right now, like okay, thyroid this, metabolism that, birth control this. And I had a little stint of my own, being really obsessed with hormonal birth control and its effects, but like your knowledge seems to be that in all the different areas of like hormonal, gut health, functional health, all that. So at the time, like 5, 10 years ago, like there just wasn't information like this out
Mm-hmm.
there. Like now it's all over the place. So where did you go and like how did you really educate yourself on all those things?
Yeah, so I always say the best case study is yourself, right? As a coach, like walk the walk, talk the talk. And I think that's where I started learning was just doctors were not necessarily listening to my own symptoms, and just kind of advocating for myself and starting really like studying my own body based on my symptoms, my lab work, my diet, my lifestyle. And, you know, seeing that birth control, hormonal birth control was really impacting me in so many different ways internally, acne or just my cycle, bloating, my IBS, my celiac disease, all of these things were just stacking up and up and up, and the doctors weren't necessarily listening to my symptoms. They were just like, try a different pill, try a different form of birth control, try this, try that. Little did I know, I have two uterus, like I have two cycles, and that's what was causing it. But they were just like, here's another birth control pill. So I
Mm,
think that's where my love for like finding the root cause came into play, because having irritable bowel disease with chronic constipation, you know, having my autoimmune conditions, having my celiac disease, all of that I found out myself through my own testing, through my own experimenting. It wasn't a doctor saying, like, here's what you have. It was me really digging and advocating for myself. So that's kind of where my research started was, why am I feeling this way? Why am I having the symptoms? And how can we fix that without just putting a band aid on it? So from there, you know, I was reading, like you said, there wasn't a lot of research, but, you know, Jolene Brighton was a huge person, who does research on post birth control syndrome. So I was reading a ton about her research. You know, Lacey Dunn is a fellow registered dietitian and functional health practitioner, and working with her, also reading her books were like a huge eye opener for me. and just really like seeing other women who were having similar experiences and just talking with them and then helping them find their root cause and seeing them heal. Really just made it kind of like, wow, like this is actually something that you can find the root cause and not necessarily just need a different medication or a different birth control or, you know, telling women that their symptoms are just in their head.
Yeah. Which is unfortunately really, really common nowadays. So, no, that's really cool to know. And just some of the resources that you shared, I know are really, really popular still to this day. And I think
Mm-hmm.
really good knowledge transcends time. So, just knowing that they have like really been able to keep it, like those books have kept their popularity in a way,
Mm-hmm.
like it does say a lot about the information that's in them. So, do you mind me like listing out so all the different conditions that you said: celiac, IBS,
Mm-hmm.
chronic constipation,
Mm-hmm.
one kidney, two ovaries and cycles. There was one more, autoimmune. Is it PCOS?
I do have PCOS, and then I have incomplete titers for lupus, and
Okay.
then also Sturgeon's disease. So those are
Wow.
two that I'm still kind of, finding out based on my lab work and everything like that. But just a ton of internal health symptoms that came shortly after I had mono. So I think that is
Okay.
something that, as my autoimmune condition started to pick up, I was then diagnosed with the IBD, then the celiac, and then now the autoimmune titers are all flaring up.
Yeah.
So I think that it was just something awakened, you know, my
Yeah.
autoimmune condition, and now it's something that is very controlled. Like I don't have any flare ups, I don't have many symptoms, but it wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of matching my symptoms and really just advocating for more testing because I always say test, don't guess. Like you never know what's under the hood there. So
Yeah. Okay. So here's the question that I have with that. Like, long list of things that you could literally, like, you of all people have the reason or the excuse that is so valid to say, you know what, like, this is too much.
mm-hmm.
Like, I am throwing in the towel, like, or just not prioritizing your health to the level that you are, to the point where you're literally walking the walk, setting the example, like doing the most to advocate for your health. So, like, what mindsets or like mental frameworks do you use in your journey? Because I'm sure it's not always sunshine and rainbows and it's not always
Mm-hmm.
easy. So, like, how do you pull yourself out of that when you have like diagnosable conditions and symptoms that like are really, I mean, just really challenging to go through?
Yeah, so you're right that it's not always sunshines and rainbows. Sometimes I will literally just I do have a pity party for myself. And I'm like, I take care of myself. I go to the gym 5 days a week. I'm tracking my food. My husband's a registered dietitian. I've worked in healthcare for years. Why is my body going against me? And I've had times where I just have to sit with myself and say how grateful I am, right? And just show gratitude that my body is allowing me to heal, right? Because not everybody has that opportunity. And, I've worked in healthcare where I'm in a nursing home or rehab, and there's 30, 40, 50-year olds who are having strokes and brain injuries and heart attacks, and they aren't able to heal. Their bodies aren't allowing them to do so. So, just knowing like the decisions and the actions that you are making in your 20s and 30s, like, are absolutely showing your future for yourself in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So I think on the days where I either am having a flare up or I'm just not feeling my best and I get another diagnosis, because we know that it comes very frequently now, that I'll just pop
Yeah.
into a doctor and they say, "Oh, you have this." And I'm like, "All right, add it to the list. It's fine. We can handle this." Because I know that and I trust my body to be able to do that. So, if anybody is kind of getting new diagnoses or finding out about health conditions, just know, like, trust your body. It can handle it. You just have to have your mental and your physical kind of aligned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that just that coming back to gratitude and the perspective that you're able to have because of what you've literally seen is so
Mm-hmm.
powerful. And I've heard you say that before, the like the decisions in your 20s and 30s
Mm-hmm.
really impact later on. But I guess I didn't piece together where it was coming from exactly. But I think what I'm hearing is that it's really just like knowing that every decision you make right now, even if you're having the flare ups, they count, and
Mm-hmm.
they're counting towards your long-term health and living a long and happy life and eventual, reduction of your symptoms, even if it's not the right now situation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And every time you're kind of not in the mood or you're not motivated, right? What will yourself tomorrow think if you maybe instead of eating your like I just had chickpea pasta and frozen veggies and chicken sausage and tomato sauce, and I could have come home from work knowing I had 15 minutes and just stopped at Wendy's on my way home. But myself tomorrow, myself in a year, myself in 3 years will thank me. So it's just those, little decisions that your future self is like, that's what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. Well, let me ask you this then. When it comes to coaching your clients, now here, we're doing a lot of like integrative health for our women here, whether that is with the functional side or just like integrating that with the nutrition and the training and all of that. So, how would you describe your approach when you have a client who's got conditions similar to yours? And how does that differ from our typical, like, here's your macros and here's your
Mhm.
training plan sort of approach?
Yeah, absolutely. So, regardless if you have any underlying health condition or you're just coming for improving your overall health, lifestyle, whatever it may be, we always have to start with the foundational habits, right? So, no matter who's coming to us, it's making sure number one, our headspace, our mindset is there, our goals are aligned with our actions. And then it'll be things like water intake, protein, steps, just kind of building those foundational actions first. And then I think what differs from there, right? Yes, we can give you nutrition protocols, we can give you the training, the steps, the water. Those are all great and dandy. But really getting to the root cause, I think, is so different because I'm really digging into maybe somebody says they didn't sleep great a couple weeks in a row. Okay, but let's figure out why. Is it things that you're doing, like actionable habits, like blue light, scrolling, caffeine, or is it something underlying, right? Do we have a cortisol imbalance? Do we have adrenal fatigue? Do we have any hormonal imbalances, or where's the stress coming from? Kind of getting to the root cause. So I do think that's kind of what differs is maybe somebody says they have headaches, maybe somebody says they're spotting in between cycles, or they have bloating after every meal. And I think what differs is I don't just acknowledge those symptoms, but really just digging a little bit deeper, whether that is just symptoms, whether it's testing, whether it is looking at lab work, GI maps, looking at anything further that can kind of not only acknowledge it, but kind of resolve it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a whole rabbit hole there. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, so the sleep example, okay, is it something that you're physically doing in the habits, or is it like the underlying stuff? And then let's say it's the underlying stuff, the conversation then opens up to like, well, what caused that in the first
Mm-hmm.
place? So that we can not only treat the symptoms at that cause there, but then like, okay, what led to the adrenal fatigue in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is it the fact that like constantly overworking, never making any time for ourselves, like all those things that have piled up over the past decade? It's like, okay, well, then that's some serious, again, habit change that has to happen there in order for us to not just feel better temporarily, but for good. So, no, that's like my favorite part is it's kind of like playing detective in a way, but it really gets to impact other people's lives really positively. So, I think it's just having that drive, right? The mental, like, I want to find the answer for you.
Mm-hmm.
That we need to have here in order for us to get to the right root cause for each client.
Yeah, definitely. And, some people will come with symptoms and they just say, oh, I've always been that way, or it's always been this way. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be. So that's my favorite thing when it has been a long term symptom or a long term scenario with poor sleep or painful cycles. And I'm like, nope, stop. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big one is what so many of us are willing to accept as normal because maybe it just seems common or just it's been that way our whole life when in reality we don't even really know how good we can feel if we were to just take care of certain variables or change certain habits and address the root. So, if you are listening to this and you're like, I have a symptom or two of what Julia had mentioned, I didn't realize that that was actually an issue. Here's one that comes up a lot in check ins is like going to the bathroom. Number two is when they answer the digestion question, it's like, oh, digestion's good. And I'm like, cool, but what does that mean? And they're like, well, I go to the bathroom like once every 3 days. And I'm like, bruh, that ain't normal. And so like really knowing like what is the standard of excellence, if you will, and then being able to compare from there. So I feel like it's good to have those kind of reference points for people like who might have just been living with constipation their whole life. They had no idea. Just had someone like that this past week. We increased her fiber intake and now she's going every day. And she's like, this is the first time in my life I've gone to the bathroom every single day.
Yeah,
So
no,
it's
it's crazy
like that.
that some people's normal doesn't mean that it's optimal, right?
Yeah.
So whether you're constipated, whether you're having diarrhea every day, whether you're bloated every day, you're having, belching after meals or whatever it may be, like just because it's your normal doesn't mean that it's optimal. So just kind of like you said, being very clear, very detailed in your check-ins, I think is like one of my favorite things. I'm like, there is no filter here. I need
Yeah.
to know the ins, the outs. That's one of my favorite things is just knowing everything, all the nitty gritty details.
Yeah. Tell me all of it. And it's so sorry, TMI. And I'm like, no. Cool. Okay. Well, then I guess really from here, there was one more question that I had kind of along that note. But honestly, I can't remember what it was. So, with that being said, is there anything with your mission for your mission as a coach, the impact that you want to have that you feel like we haven't covered yet?
Hmm. I definitely think that helping women understand that they don't have to be stuck, right? Whether it
Mm,
is being stuck in a certain physique that you are in, whether it is being stuck in a certain mindset that you're in, or being stuck in saying it's just going to be that way, such as high blood pressure, such as having high cholesterol, high triglycerides, poor gut health, all of these autoimmune conditions, right? Like I could have just been like, well, that's my future. I'm just going to be on
yeah.
medication the rest of my life. I'm just going to be uncomfortable in my body forever. And just knowing like you don't have to be stuck. Like, yes, it's going to be hard work. And yes, you have to make active decisions every day to choose not to be stuck. But once you get into that routine and you kind of start seeing that it's possible to get unstuck, it is just like you're never going to go back. So just knowing like whatever you're working on, whether it is physical, whether it is mental, whether it is your internal health, things can change, right? And that's what we're kind of here to do is help you understand that and help you fix that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the question that I actually forgot was like, what would you say to someone that's just like, ah, this sounds like a lot of work? It's like, well, you really just answered that. It's like you're never going to go back if you know how good you can feel, how good life can be, and how much freer that is
Mm-hmm.
than like whatever you're stuck in right now. Um, and I think it really kind of it adds a dimension to health because I think so many people like it's really obvious when somebody like really wants to change and they're like, I'm in a horrible place, everything sucks, everything is terrible, and my health is in shambles. And it's like, okay, we can absolutely always take someone from a horrible place to like, okay, things are okay, like I've lost some weight and um I've lost some weight. I feel better. Like things are generally okay. But I think where people really get stuck, especially with like investing in coaches and coaching, is like they feel like they have to be there in order for it to be justified
Mm-hmm.
because like their life is literally at risk. But I think there's so much value in kind of that like second layer to it, that second dimension of not just like going from a horrible place to like things being okay, but like you might be okay right now. Things might be fine. You're not going to die if things don't change, but like how much better could it be? Like how much more could you unlock if your health was optimized? Like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that, people just kind of, especially women, we just kind of have these symptoms day to day and we just carry on and we just get through it or just keep pushing. And then, like you said, we don't ask for help or we don't look for help until we get to the point where we can no longer push through. So I think that kind of putting yourself aside and being like, I need to change now so that I'm not in a hole a year from now, 2 years from now, because that's when it is harder to dig out of it, right? So people kind of noticing maybe when they start to feel a little bit tired, or they start to feel a little bit of bloating, or they start to feel like a little bit uncomfortable in their skin, that's when you need to make the change before the steps keep going backwards, right?
Yeah, because it gets so much harder. Like the farther down that rabbit hole you go,
Mm-hmm.
the less motivated you are, the more proof in the pudding you have that you can't, quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote, because you have failed yourself that many more times. And so, I mean, I think it really is a good point of, okay, even if our health is in a okay spot, we're not coming to the doctors nervous because they're going to tell us our blood work is X, Y, and Z, pre-diabetic, high blood pressure, high triglycerides. Like, even if you're not in that position, that doesn't mean that your health isn't justified and that it's not valuable. And that, because I think what you outlined so well with just your own story is that your decisions in your 20s and 30s will absolutely define your 40s and 50s. And in the world that we live in today, it's just so easy for every little habit and every little thing to stack up to something that we look in the mirror a decade from now and we hate what we see because of the food industry and the processed food that's so plentiful and the portion sizes and the sedentary lifestyle. So it's like our environment's working against us. So I think it's just taking that seriously when we have the chance to.
Yeah, and something that Shane always told me when I was still pushing through my journey with my autoimmune conditions, with my new diagnosis, I was 18. And I remember I was in the gym and I was just so bloated. I was so tired, and I could not push through my workout. And Shane looked at me and he goes, "If it was easy, everyone would do it, right? If if this whole being healthy, being optimal, like if all of these things were easy, then everybody would be doing this, right? So just knowing like, yes, it's going to be work, but
Yeah.
if it was easy, everybody would be walking around picture perfect health. We wouldn't have obesity skyrocketing. We wouldn't have childhood obesity skyrocketing, right? So it is going to be challenging. But if you are in that top like 5-10%, putting work in yourself, investing in yourself, then it'll definitely, pay you back. So
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right because I think it's just like the difficulty that it is, it's worthwhile. Like it's just worthwhile to feel good. It's worthwhile to feel amazing and to really feel like you're not just healthy, but in control of your health and control of your life. And that you know that you're doing everything you can to live the best life that you have because you only have one.
yeah, I
So
know.
yeah. Cool. Well, I think I'm out of questions. But I think that's it for today. So is there anything else that you feel like we haven't covered on your journey, your mission, your inspiration for others?
No, I think we touched on a lot, and just kind of like honing in on the fact that no matter what your goal, like we said, if it's to improve your internal health, if it's to get out of a certain spot that you're in, or if you are doing good and you just want to get better, like that's what we're here for. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited. I'm very eager to kind of continue on with PCC. I'm really inspired by what we've done so far and what we get to do, and I just appreciate you.
Same here. That goes both ways, and just excited for the journey ahead and what we're going to be able to transform our services and what we're going to be able to do for women together is going to be awesome. So, where can the people find you on the socials?
Yeah, so I am at JULT_fit. So that is Jewel T Fit on everything. My maiden name is Trafton. That's where the T comes from. And I'm getting married in April, so I will be Park from now on. So Julia Park, but my Instagram is at Jewel T Fit. Same thing for TikTok. And yeah, follow me on there.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Make sure to give Coach Julia a follow and share the love. When you do listen to this, especially if you're a client of hers, let her know and let her know your biggest takeaways. So that is all for today. Thank you again for listening because I know your attention is your most valuable resource. So we will see you back here next time.